to Geeky Ent, and on this episode, we're going to be discussing the highly proclaimed, highly controversial, highly wanted Snyder Cut of the Justice League movie. So,
You know
Mary,
what? We're just gonna make this a DC just snuff review. Period.
this is going to
Sorry,
be a
DC fan.
DC review of what it is, what it's all about. So, in our previous discussion, we had a HBO Max discussion. You can check it out here in the link below. And basically, that Snyder Cut is officially going to be released to fans, but it's going to be exclusively on HBO Max. And I believe it is next year. They haven't said what month of next year, but we are finally getting it. And that's the movie that hopefully changes uh, the debacle of whatever that was of the Justice League movie, where there was a lot of issues when it comes to plotline, storyline, choice of villain, and Henry Cavill's mustache. So, Mary, what are your initial thoughts on the Snyder Cut coming out, Justice League? Let's just let it all out today.
Oh my God, you had to start with me, huh?
I I have to piggyback off of you.
All right. Well, like I've said previously, not obviously to you guys. This is the first time I've had this conversation on film, but as far as with just previous conversations with you, Danny, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to it at all. And the reason why I say this is because of the simple fact of the matter is this is just something that we've seen before. What was it with Batman versus Superman? That film came out. It was horrible. And then later they
Hold on, what
decide,
was
oh yeah,
what was
we're
the
going to.
hold
I'm
on, just a
sorry,
timeout. What was the name of the mom again from that movie?
Martha.
Martha. Yeah, that's a joke. You know, they didn't say it too many
Yeah,
times.
exactly.
So, okay, go on, continue.
So yeah, just continuing that, like, oh yeah, we know this movie sucks. So we're just going to say, yeah, it's so much better because there's so much footage that we didn't show you, and we're gonna release that uncut footage and just give you the whole thing. And even that really didn't change anything. The film still sucked. And here
That's
we are, how many years later, with Justice League.
that's
Personally, I went into that film with no expectations. I'm a really big DC Comics fan. Love reading the comics, love the animated movies. Most of the players or most of the characters that I cosplay are DC characters. I can't recall doing a Marvel character yet. Or at the top of my fingers, I can't think of ever cosplaying as a Marvel person just yet, I should say. So for me to sit here and say that I don't like the movies or the movies just suck, they do. I haven't seen not one. Well, that's a lie. I haven't seen any of the recent ones, I should go ahead and say, that I've liked. With Justice League itself, I honestly feel that whole movie could have been avoided by certain choices they made in the beginning of the film. So, I mean, I get it. They had to switch out directors. So yeah, there was a whole different concept. But honestly, I don't see this whole concept helping because the same person that directed it has also had his hand in other DC films, and the DC films that he's had his hand in still haven't turned out to be the best.
it's all it's supposed to for one, DC and Marvel have always gone head to head. First in the comics and then the movies. However, the the business model that Marvel set up was introducing each character first in their standalone film, and then they all came together. And when that first Avengers movie came out, it was like everybody's, comic minds were blown. Like, this is incredible, this is amazing, because we knew a backstory of each character. But for fans that had no idea, that were just dragged from their friends to go see the Justice League, they may have heard of Batman and Superman, of course, but do they know who Aquaman was, or do they know the Flash backstory, or what those little snippets were of when the apocalypse happened. Like, I was personally lost in certain aspects of that film because apparently the Snyder Cut had footage that wasn't released in this current in the version that was released back in 2017. The main problem that I had with it, it was just the plot line, the choice of villain, like I mentioned earlier. For those that recall, Steppenwolf was the main villain in Justice League. But for somebody who doesn't know who Steppenwolf is, they're going to be like, well, who is this schmuck? But for somebody like us, we know that Steppenwolf is a lieutenant or basically like an acolyte for the bigger bad villain type guy of Darkseid. Now, your question is, well, who the hell is Darkseid? Well, if you've seen the movie Avengers Infinity War Endgame, you know who Thanos is. Thanos is a close comparison to Darkseid. Me personally, I think Darkseid can kick Thanos' rear end just because Darkseid can shoot Omega beams through his eyes. He's more ruthless in what he does versus what Thanos did. Um, I won't get into the Marvel stuff, but just I've been staring at an image, and there was a mishap earlier in the video, but you'll see earlier in the video there was a sneak peek of Darkseid actually will show up in the Snyder Cut. And like Mary mentioned earlier, this Snyder Cut is basically going to be essentially the same movie, but with unreleased footage that I hope makes the story somewhat better. Um, kind of taking the comparison with the Star Wars universe. The Last Jedi Episode 8, fans consider that to be Episode 7.5. There's even been petitions online. This is how crazy geeks can get. There's been petitions online to even take Episode 8 out of canon completely and just remake another episode 9. So they'll move episode 9 to 8 and then make another one. Like, that's how crazy fans love this content. So when we got the initial Justice League, like you, I had no hopes, no expectations because one, um, Ben Affleck, I know Ben Affleck is a huge comic guy, but even he said he wasn't really proud of it and stuff like that. So when I heard about that, I'm like, well, that sucks. If you got somebody like Ben Affleck, and then I think even Kevin Smith came out and said some stuff, it doesn't really put faith before the movie came out. There were a lot of problems before during production. Um, so, like I said, of course I'll see it just to compare it. Will I go watch the 2017 version of Justice League? Probably not, because it was just horrendous. The CGI was horrible. Like I said, the whole apocalyptic scenes that were foreshadowed in earlier movies and then showed in this movie didn't even have any relation to like plot line or storyline because the whole point of a comic arc is to move and progress a storyline, develop characters, and that this had absolutely nothing on it. Now, one, Mary and I are not bashing DC itself because we love comics and everything, but we
We
are going to
even
be
love the
truthful.
live action shows.
We are truthful to it, and we'll discuss a little bit on a better positive note towards the end of the video with the live action shows on the CW network. But when it was told that the Snyder Cut's gonna get released and everything, I'm like, well, here we go again, essentially. So like, I have nothing to really look forward to because they had to fix a lot of different problems in their story arc. Uh, Luckily, in my opinion, my personal opinion, I think the only good DC movies in the last 5 or 10 years were the Wonder Woman movies. Those ones were relatively
Yeah,
good. However, the best DC movies that are part of this DC universe, perhaps, for me personally, you can never go wrong with the original Tim Burton Batman movies. The
exactly.
first one with Michael Keaton, Batman Returns. If you haven't seen those, go watch those now after this video, of course. Those are phenomenal. Then we can forget about the whole what's his name, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Carrey.
Mr.
We'll forget
Freeze.
about the bat nipple suit. Forget about those. Um, and I was kind of excited at first when I heard that Ben Affleck, like I said, he's a huge comic guy. When he actually was going to be cast as Batman, as Bruce Wayne, I'm like, okay, maybe they'll do an old man Bruce type thing and go into the later years and see what
No.
happened there. But no, that didn't happen. We got a bunch of Martha jokes and puns and memes and stuff that came out. And I'm like, you know what? I think DC shot themselves in the foot. So they tried to redeem themselves. I thought Aquaman was okay in terms of I thought it was
My
okay.
opinion, he still would have been better off as Lobo.
True,
That
true,
role was horribly miscast.
true. I mean, the castings were a little bit wrong. Then Suicide Squad came out. I don't know what happened there.
This is
Um,
my opinion about Suicide Squad, and this one really grinds my gears with Suicide Squad. I went into seeing the trailers, getting really hyped about that film.
because you're a huge Harley
First time
fan,
you'll
so
exactly first time you get to see, you know, a live action Harley. The first, well, in a film, I should go ahead
the
and
first
reiterate.
portrayal, yeah,
Yeah, not including any of the TV shows or anything like
animated
that.
series, yeah.
Exactly. Um, we had all these crazy stories about how Jared Leto was going hella method and he was so into his role as a Joker. He was even freaking out like his castmates because he was sending them like all of these like creep gifts
hmm
as if he was the Joker. And all of the trailers that we saw were centered around Harley and Joker. Harley and Joker.
We were
Not
thinking of
only do
a mad love story from that comic arc. We
exactly
were hoping for that, yeah.
Exactly, which I mean, I get Joker isn't a part of the Suicide Squad. Fine and dandy. But to have all your trailers geared around this relationship and to only show him for what, like 10, maybe 15 seconds out of the film, have him portrayed as a thug, and then say you shot a lot more footage of him as the Joker, but that you refuse to release, but yet you're releasing all of this other stuff. And this actually could have made that movie ultimately better. It's a slap in the face.
It's it's wrong because one, Jared Leto is a phenomenal actor. He truly put his craft into his trade with Dallas Buyers Club. Uh, there's just so many movies he's been in, and he puts his
Requiem
full
for a Dream. He did a
yeah,
really good job.
he puts his 150% into what he does. Now, personally, I didn't like the portrayal of the Joker that he was. I thought, who is this is just going to be a disaster. The way that the trailers showed him, I just didn't like the look of his Joker. But I had a little bit of faith that I knew Jared Leto can put the character of the Joker into whatever he was cast in.
And to be perfectly honest, I'm sure he did. It's just unfortunately we'll never see it.
We won't see it
And I
because
think they deserve to. I mean, I think that as fans, we deserve to at least see that. And even if you don't want to give it to us as fans, at least give it to the actor that worked his ass off
yeah,
for this role, just to never see the light of day.
I think in this movie, in that movie, he was only on screen for like less than 10 minutes. When the trailers put a heavy emphasis on his character being a pivotal role in that movie. But enough about
Which
that. Yeah, but go ahead. Last thought
I
on
was
this
gonna
one,
say,
because
I
it's
think, and
making
this is the
me.
last thing about this is I think where their biggest mistake is they wanted to make it family friendly. Excuse me. So they did
PG-13.
everything that they could, yeah, to go for a PG-13 film. But even when you're reading the comics, that's not a PG-13 comic book. That film should have automatically gone towards an R rating. And I get people were scared to have a comic book movie associated with the R rating. Look at Deadpool. Look at
Exactly.
all the money Deadpool brought in at an
Dead
R rating.
Deadpool was a huge risk, and then they went ahead and released a sequel. And then I got
Look
scared
at
when Disney
Joker,
bought them,
R rating.
and it was the highest grossing R-rated comic movie. Well, because there was really no other ones. Well, The Crow was one, but that's for another future video. I will not bash on The
Yeah.
Crow at all. And if two specific people are watching this video, you know who I'm talking about. So, um, yeah, the cost of this Snyder cut is $30 million on additional uh, cost, I guess, for this movie. So, like I said, I'm happy that it's happening, but you know, next year, maybe hopefully this video can be proved wrong because DC really has to prove themselves to get themselves back on track in the cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Now, Harley Quinn and the Royal Emancipation or whatever, they changed the sequel or the subtitle of that film, but the last Harley Quinn movie was actually, I was enjoyed for those 90 minutes. It had a lot of action. It had a lot of the plot was pretty straightforward. Uh, and the Birds of Prey, that's what it was, the Birds of Prey. You really that was one movie that kind of was good, but it was like if I had to rate it out of a 10, it was probably like a 6.5 just because it wasn't as good as say like a Wonder Woman story or
Yeah.
anything like that. It had its comedic things, but when a certain organization establishes so much damage or subpar product and you keep releasing that and you're still getting the perception of it, there's no hope, there's really no faith in the fans to actually go out and say like, hey, I want to go out and see your movie. So when we were
Yeah.
looking at this Snyder cut, hopefully we'll see. Um, Darkseid is a huge villain in the DC universe, in the comics specifically. So hopefully he's got a more pivotal role. Specifically, I'd love to see the Martian Manhunter because he is a huge key component for the Justice League.
I
Um,
agree.
and I believe this is a good segue. I believe he was in Supergirl in
Yeah,
the
he still
CW
is.
network. So let's recap the CW network. They have, let's see, they have the Flash, Arrow, the Legends of
Well, not
Tomorrow,
anymore. Arrow's done.
Arrow. Okay, I'm so behind on the CW. Um,
There's
Supergirl.
Legends of Tomorrow.
I mentioned Legends of Tomorrow.
There's
Uh,
Batwoman.
Batwoman, which I heard was really good, because one, I haven't seen it, and it's kind of disappointing now because now that the main actress Rose McGowan, I think her name is,
No,
um,
Ruby Rose.
same Ruby Rose. I'm horrible with names. I know faces, but she is no longer gonna be uh, in the show anymore. So they're gonna have to recast the main character in a show that's centered around this character. So, but I did hear the show was really good. Hush was in it, and for those that don't know who Hush is, he's a childhood friend. Thomas Elliot, if I recall, was a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne that was just completely jealous and everything. And there's a whole trade paperback that I recommend if you are a Batman fan. It's just called Batman Hush, and it's a nice little thriller comic book, and it kind of puts a little bit of perspective on that character if you've seen that show. Um,
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't checked it out yet. um, cough, cough.
yes, which means you should. So, I mean, the CW universe, in my opinion, is better as a whole compared to the cinematic universe of DC because I remember that they had a lot of intertwined episodes like throughout the week. Like you'll have
hmm
Arrow appear on the Green Arrow appear on Flash or Oliver Queen. I'm sorry,
Or every
messed up.
year there would be their big crossover, which the crossovers were amazing,
A
even though this
Crisis on
last one.
Infinite Earths, like me specifically on Netflix, because I'm behind on it. I'll specifically go watch those, like the crossover events, just because the story in those few episodes are great to watch. Now, I think the reason why I kind of stopped watching them is because just things started coming up, but also the episodes within one season are a lot more than just a regular standard 12 to 14 episode season. I recall like each season took a break for a month because each season had about 20 to 26 episodes. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, jump onto your Netflix account and just search up Flash or Arrow or
Oh
anything, and
yeah,
you'll see just how long each of these episodes, or sorry, each of the seasons are. And each episode is an hour long. So you can imagine how much acting, the casting, how much editing went into this. And
but
this
it's totally worth it.
the CG in some of those episodes are like I just asked myself, how did they afford this? Like I remember
Hell, look at how they did Grodd and Killer Shark.
Gorilla Grodd. I'm like, that is just phenomenal. It looked like a top-notch movie quality
hmm
on a regular. weeknight TV show. So if I had to be asked whether to start with the shows or the movies,
I would start
definitely
with the shows.
start with the shows, but throw in the original Tim Burton Batman movies to break it up a little bit because Batman is not really portrayed in any of the cinematic TV shows. There is one TV show that's not on the CW network called Gotham, but you're not going to really see Batman until the very last episode, very last shot. But
There was Batman in the last crossover.
oh,
Very, very short. And yeah,
yeah, because Gotham was
check it
more
out. Check out
Go-
the Easter egg on that one.
check it out, because Gotham was more about Jim Gordon versus anybody else in the Gotham universe. So we can have a whole nother discussion on the Gotham universe, and we're not even going to get into that. The whole point of this video was to basically have a little minor therapy session on the Snyder Cut and what our thoughts were on it. Mary, do you have like any final thoughts before we wrap things up here?
No, I think I've actually said my piece
You got enough out? You're good. You know,
for now.
for until next year or until Wonder Woman 87 or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah, it's not coming out next year. I think it was pushed back.
I don't know. The whole situation that's going on is pushed back a lot, and a lot of movies are being released at home. But I'm just thinking to myself, how can they, the movie theaters, not just the one thing. It's like when you invite friends over and spend the $10 for streaming a movie versus going to a theater and buying individual tickets. So essentially, when you go to a movie, you're going with somebody else or a couple friends. So they're losing money on getting back, the streaming services versus
Yeah,
theater releases. So I don't know how that's gonna go. I have, you know, no concern on that because I'm not getting any of those profits. We're just here to discuss all this stuff. So um,
yeah,
yeah, final thoughts from me. We'll see. We've been disappointed before. We've been uh, surprised before on different things, but when it comes to the Snyder Cut, we'll just have to wait and see. Um,
that's
like I
all we
said,
can do.
I'm happy it's coming out. I'm just didn't want to get my hopes up before it actually comes out, So, story of our lives. So, until then, my friends, don't forget to geek out. Please like, comment, and subscribe on our videos. Check out our other videos here. We have more discussions. We have a lot of collectible discussions. Just check us out, Geeky Ent. We are here on YouTube and coming at you live on the internet when it's recorded.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Who knows? But until then, don't forget to geek out, and we'll see you soon.
Stay safe out there, guys.